my name is Haley Hanners, and my emerging technology is lab-grown meat. So lab-grown meat is not your traditional veggie burger that's plant-based or some other meat substitute, even if it's designed to taste like meat. It's actually produced through in vitro cultivation of animal cells. So scientists essentially multiply animal cells to mimic chicken, fish, poultry, etc. So in terms of the societal impacts of my technology, there aren't a lot of obvious dystopian viewpoints associated with it, but one potential societal viewpoint that may be associated with lab-grown meat is the view that more and quicker access to meat or this sort of lab-grown meat might lead to faster dissatisfaction with our choices. I think that lab-grown meat also has the potential to upend a lot of how we think about food in general, including what society considers normal consumption of meat and also what we consider ethical and normal in terms of the behavior, or in terms of the treatment of animals that are subjected to this lab-grown meat process. There will definitely be a big regulatory impact with this emerging technology. The Trump administration announced earlier this year that there will be two government agencies in charge of regulating lab-grown meat, which will be the FDA and the USDA. The Federal Health and Human Services Administration and the USDA signed an agreement together with the purpose being to designate the roles of both the USDA and the FDA for determining how to regulate this industry. Under the agreement, the FDA will oversee all cell collection, cell banks, and cell growth, and the USDA will kind of take over after that to see how the food is produced and how it's labeled. So safety regulations for cell-based foods have yet to be issued, but they are likely to include standards for how to grow the tissue, how to sign off on its safety, how to label it in ways that consumers know what they're buying. There will also need to be regulation in the way of exports, and lab-grown meat companies that wish to export their products will also have to comply with international law, so there are implications in both those areas as well. To be cost-effective, that may mean being as broad or as far-reaching as possible for some of these companies to comply with as many countries as possible. So it'll be interesting to see what the FDA, USDA decide, but also what other countries decide in the way of regulations of lab-grown meat. So the labeling issue kind of rolls into the next area of concern, which is tort law, which I think will most certainly be implicated. Food companies designing, selling, manufacturing these products will likely be liable on tort theories such as strict liability, negligence, product and design defect, manufacturing defect, and more. In particular, I predict that theories relating to advertising will be popular for ensuing food companies, because the categorization of this type of food, the labeling requirements, it's all very much up in the air. And although I think companies will be careful in how they go about this, there's just such a potential for lawsuits. Anything related to labeling or misrepresenting meat could be an issue and a sore spot for industry groups. I know that the traditional meat companies are opposing the word meat even being used in labeling these products, whereas the lab-grown meat companies are throwing out terms like clean meat or synthetic meat, or terms that may be a little bit more clear in terms of whether or not it's an actual meat product, but it's still kind of up in the air. So the last area of law I wanted to talk about was evidence law, which I think will be of great significance in future litigation surrounding lab-grown meat, because in particular expert testimony As with any area of law or technology, will be important, but it's going to be difficult because it's so new, and there will probably be long-term effects that we just are not able to understand um, in the first few years of lab-grown meat being a thing, being on the market. It's going to develop, it's going to change. I think the FRI general acceptance test will therefore be difficult to operate under, and I think the Daubert test will probably be the appropriate test for determining the reliability of expert testimony surrounding lab-grown meat. Um, but I think, as with anything, we just have to be cautious as consumers, and I think there will probably be formative lawsuits that do happen in the future. But for now, it seems like food companies will be safest just strictly complying with the regulations that are coming out or that currently exist. Thanks.